Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for you is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for you.
Good afternoon, and we welcome you to another edition of Working for You. I am Lesroy Williams, your host. We want to apologize for the late start. We had some technical challenges. However, we welcome you. Thank you for tuning in. Whether you're here in St. Kitts and Nevis, you're listening online, you're in the diaspora, you're very welcome to this program. Today I have with me two stalwarts, I would call them that, of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, who I will ask in a while to introduce themselves, but their names are, I have Stuart LaPlace and Dr. Leighton Naraine. Welcome to this show, gentlemen. Today we are going to be talking about agriculture, something so important to our national development, so important to helping us really to be self-sufficient, and so on. And we'll be looking at it from three perspectives. One, the science perspective, the technology perspective, and the business perspective. But I'll ask my guests to introduce themselves and to say a little bit about who they are and their experience in agriculture. Of course, they're educators. Yes. I'll begin with Stuart.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Stuart LaPlace. I'm a science lecturer at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, and I also do research in hydroponic technology.
That's it? Okay.
Short and sweet.
Well, of course, you already introduced me. Of course, as Leighton Naraine at the CFBC. I'm the Director of Employee and Program Development. I do any number of things in that position, from program reviews, building new programs, doing research for policy, implementation, projects, etc. But I also was very involved in environmental science, geography, and of course agriculture. We built agriculture based on the early beginnings of agriculture as a component of environmental science. I must say that I'm also a farmer. And which is important in terms of the appreciation for the subject matter, and also from the practical aspect of things, because we're as educators we do training, develop programs, theoretical, but we also look at the practical aspect.
Sure. Now, the education on agriculture is so important. Of course, you know, agriculture is one of those areas that is looked at as, when you don't have enough subjects and so on, you're going to farming. It is for those people over there who are not so academically inclined. You know, it's for people down at TechVoc. It's not for the bright people, so to speak.
We have, I would say, a multi-pronged approach to it. Technology is at the center. We recognize that this is a world where technology is emerging as one of the major developments in both developed and developing countries. And we recognize that we could no longer do things in the traditional way. Everything is moving ahead, with the exception of agriculture. So by introducing technology with agriculture, we now bringing agriculture a little closer to the sphere, the technological sphere. so it could be now used and appreciated compared to how it was deemed, back in colonial and traditional days as something where you put on your big straw hat and your boots and all of that. The young people, they're not interested in that at all. I mean, let's face it, this is a world where, the principles of working very hard and from sundown to sunup and vice versa.
Yes.
People looking at a lot of smarter ways to make money, to utilize their time as well. So in going with the times, you have to also develop innovative ways of encouraging persons to not only feed themselves and advance themselves, but to have fun doing it. Now, with all of the challenges we have moving forward, like climate change, we have water scarcity, we have this situation here where water is turned off in the evenings because we have limited availability at times. Now, if we are doing traditional agriculture in open field, with the water situation we have already critical, we don't have any desalination operations going on to facilitate that water depth that we have to find ways of securing that perishable resource, but at the same time we also have to eat and be very health conscious about what we feed our children and we put on the market available for purchase. So the easy way around that is to find ways to plant a lot of the perishables locally, have them available fresh instead of have them picked and stored, and we're using a lot of gas ripening techniques and stuff like that. We kind of lower the nutritional integrity. So a healthy nation is a wealthy nation,
yes,
to coin a phrase that's commonly used. So if we find ways to feed ourselves efficiently and healthy, then we would be in a much better place health-wise, both mentally, physically and socially.
Just recently the cabinet discussed that very same thing about encouraging nationals to eat local produce, and to buy local produce because it's healthier.
A lot is.
Sometimes we feel that what comes from outside is better, but sometimes it is laced with chemicals and preservatives and so on, and all these things are carcinogens, cancer causing chemicals and so on. And there has been some link, of course, sodium nitrite and all those things in the food and so on. There's some link that was made to cancer. I think there was some research done and a link was made to some of these chemicals and, people getting cancer. Now, Dr. Naraine, there has been a lot of achievements at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, especially in the area of agriculture. But your type of agriculture, as Stuart said, it's innovative, it's the use of technology, and it is basically not using soil as such. It is hydroponics, organoponics, hybridponics, and aquaponics. These are new ways of farming, of course. Could you tell us a little bit about these things? What are they? Yeah. Define them for us.
Yeah, well, let me say first off that organoponics is soil-based, whereas hydroponics is liquid-based. Mm-hmm. The medium is liquid. We do have soil-based, and we can talk about that in a moment, but if you don't mind, I can back up a bit to the earlier question. The imported food, two things. There are many things, but I'll mention two. One is that the nutritional value deteriorates in transit, one, as it ages, but also they're probably not ripened enough, vine ripened or tree ripened. That's one, and I'll touch on it very briefly. The other thing is that when we buy produce from an external source, even though maybe the cost at the point of sale might be a little bit less competitively, but we are building a business somewhere else, and it's not about a point of sale scenario, but it's about the growth, the related growth, the value chain that goes with that, and the multiplier effect, and so on for the economy, creating jobs, creating wealth, etc. So I make a strong argument there for buying local. In terms of the coming to school or training, you mentioned earlier that the perception is that it's a subject that, is like a net.
Yes.
But I beg to vary, because what I've seen over many decades with our major agricultural institutions, educational institutions, is that many persons have gone to a very high level, academic level in agriculture. But I don't know if that has really benefited us to the extent that we have produced enough. Agriculture in the region is still a problem, and for decades. And that sort of continues. Our program has 3 tracks. So there are opportunities still for the academic track, that's in the science track.
Yes.
And it can be both from a practical as well as academic point of view, or theoretical. And then the technology, it can both be engineering to a high level, but also practically for a person to set up their own systems. And then, of course, the business track. How do you take that to entrepreneurship? So in all of those, there are opportunities for higher studies. In fact, we have students from the business track who went on to higher studies at Earth University in Costa Rica, two or three of them. There were 2 I know of. I heard that there was a 3rd one. And just today, I got news from one candidate for the University of the West Indies Faculty of Food and Agriculture to a bachelor's degree based on what they did here. He was in the business track. We have a student at Dalhousie University in the science track. And so these 3 tracks are a response to what is needed to transform the sector. If you look at a dichotomy of how developed countries of the world are producing more and exporting more to us, and our local production not necessarily there, and we are importing more and more from them, is that they have transformed their sector by introducing science and technology, and the value chain model where business adding value to their product through processing and so forth. And so I'm not saying that we need to take the same pathway, but those are important considerations. Our transformation obviously will probably have to take a different dimension, because we don't necessarily have the capital input and the land availability, but these technologies that we have introduced here, less land, less water, less time, and you name it, and also you get greater productivity within a shorter time frame, and the list goes on. Sure. Also, with these innovative technologies, we are able to mitigate or adapt to certain environmental conditions, and there's a myriad of problems that come with agriculture, anywhere from monkeys and pests and diseases, degradation of soil when there's heavy rain, adverse weather conditions, and so forth. So we are responding to all of those, and we find that people are very interested in it. Young people, people of all age, older folks, they're all, as we went across the region. So we're very excited about what we have introduced in the schools here. Stuart is in the forefront of that in primary and secondary, so that we have a pipeline coming into the college. But we have also taken it across the region.
Could you tell us a little bit about taking it across the region?
Well, the innovation really we have been. So do you wanna take that, because you could talk about it first, and then
okay. We've pretty much canvassed the Caribbean in terms of getting the technology out there. It's used in Guyana at Naraine.
Yeah, the National Agriculture Research and Extension Institute.
And we had a very wonderful experience there. And I must say, agriculture is definitely at the forefront in Guyana. The turnout and the outpouring was exceptional. Then we did some work at Trinidad at a secondary school, We did some work at Barbados at their
Samuel Jackman Prescott
Polytechnic. We did some work in Dominica.
Yeah. For the
Agriculture
department training. Yeah.
They pretty much have all the extension officers there be a part of that training, which was very impressive. Everybody turned out. We had a training for just over 2 weeks. We built a model. We trained them how to build it. So I built one, and they built one beside me as part of the course. And you know, they're still using it to this day. They're producing, and probably in short order we'll see some of that produce making its way here. Okay. And then
Nevis.
We did one in Nevis for NGO organization,
Legacy International,
in Center Stations, just across the region. Station. We did 2 there, one for the Department of Agriculture and one for another NGO for at-risk youth. And we'll be doing one in Antigua next month. This one it's very new in terms of the idea. This one will be used specifically for persons with disabilities, whether they convert into a wheelchair or we have some amputees as well. It's going to be a part of that. So it's been a challenge to get that design that would be multifaceted to accompany the various disabilities, and that project is starting next month, which is June.
Yes.
Right? So that will be the first of its kind. And locally, we have hit the ground running with that as well. We have a project in place where we're trying to get one in every high school in the Federation, and we've already started with 2 schools, Sandy Point High, Charles E. Mills Secondary, SEMS, and we also have one in Sadler's Secondary School. The training for those will begin in September, where we're going to invite the agricultural science and science teachers from the various schools to come to the college, and we're going to have a training so that they can go back to their various schools and operate the models that they have there. One of the reasons for that is to not only build capacity but to seed our program at the higher level. And we're going to be making a donation as well to a primary school in the name of Terry Williams in Old Road. We have a small model that we're going to give to them shortly as well, so they could be exposed to it at that level. So in doing that, people could see the benefits moving forward of how agriculture was looked at then to how agriculture could be now. And we feel that if children at those levels and sizes could appreciate agriculture and the importance of feeding yourself, then we could be on the right foot moving forward. Now internationally, the model is also in Africa. We have some colleagues in Nairobi, Kenya, doing some work there with it. Papua New Guinea as well is a research institute. They're doing some work looking at the subtropical feasibilities, etc. And in Europe, where the model was unveiled in an international global competition, there's also a model there as well in Holland, Arnhem to be specific. So in terms of canvassing the globe, we have moved around quite a bit. The model is out there, people are using it. We have interest coming in from places like Namibia and Ethiopia and different locations like that. So it's something that is not only innovative, but as you can see, it's creating quite a buzz in those countries which are much more developed than than ours. So it's quite a privilege to have something like that develop in a very tiny island to be used in much bigger islands. So that's something we could be proud of.
Okay. Yeah. No, Dr. Naraine,
if you don't,
sure,
if
go
you
right
don't mind,
ahead.
yeah, because I don't want to add to that. How is it that we were able to take it across the region? First of all, the concept is unique. It's an innovation, and what made it a model is that the hydroponics, which is liquid-based, liquid medium, has 3 techniques in the same growth chamber, whereas most others, if not all others, they have a single technique. In this one, we have the 3 techniques: nutrient film technique, the NFT, the ebb and flow, and the aeroponics. And Stuart has been on the forefront of the science behind it and the technology behind it. So that made it unique. And then we also have the idea of compressed planting, of course, being more efficient. In terms of those 3 techniques, he was able to compress planting. For example, instead of having 1 tomato plant in a 3-inch diameter cup, and even the depth, you can have 4. All right, so because the supply of nutrients is constant. In the case of organoponics, that's soil-based, which is a concept that originated in Cuba, and we have modified it here and tested it over both hydroponics and organoponics have been tested here with us for maybe up to 7 years, and we documented the results and have the evidence. We have modified it where it originated in Cuba, they use urine as the nutrient supply to replenish the soil. And when I mentioned that to some class of students, when I say class, practical work in Barbados, they say, hey, we don't want anything to do with that. But they like organic farming, but they said, so what about the solid supply of nutrients? And anyway, but so what we did, it's basically a controlled environment, but the soil, the nutrients are optimum in the soil. They're maintained at optimum levels. And we also would have a drip irrigation there, so minimum water. And we use composting to replenish the soil. All right, so that's phenomenal. Hybrid ponics is where the early growth stage, even the germination and the early growth state of the plant, begins in hydroponics and then transferred into organoponics. So they get a very good jump start and a healthy one as well. All right. Once we implemented the program at CFBC in agricultural studies out of the 1 module of testing, we applied to the Organization of American States under the initiative of the transfer of knowledge in science and engineering and the promotion of innovations and entrepreneurship. Under that theme, throughout the Caribbean and Latin America, we won. We were the only one and to win it among dozens of applicants. And so we were able to get some funding to replicate and upscale and replicate the concept in the region. And that was, I would say, successfully implemented. They were very happy with it. Stuart and I know that we could have achieved more objectives because there were some of the objectives that we had to cut back on, and the concept itself, we had to trim it, which was a difficult thing to do because of budget cuts. But it was successful. People were excited throughout the region, and so there it was. We also had a colleague from the University of Central Florida that was with us here, University of Central Florida, Professor Meehan, who brought students, scholars, resident scholars, on a yearly basis on a service learning project, and we got him involved alongside our own students. And so that was one of the topics, and we got some resources from them as well, from University of Central Florida, significantly to start our own facility. And that was highly successful as well, and it translated into now, this is news again, is that now he's going to come back as a Fulbright scholar to be able to we can work on a publication. We can work on a publication and also some other developments in it.
Sure.
But talking about publication, out of the project that Stuart worked on with taking it across but presented in Holland, and it became one of the top 20 inventions in its category,
Mhm.
right? Top 20 inventions in the world in its category. Publication is there on that, edited by Stuart. We also have a joint publication in a textbook edited by the University of the West Indies, Sustainable Food Production Practices, Volume 2. That's Sustainable Food Production Practices in the Caribbean, Volume 2. We have a Chapter 10, which is Agricultural Diversification and Non-Traditional Agricultural Systems. And then more recently, in the past year, we have another publication out of IGI Publishing in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Not the chocolate, but Hershey, Pennsylvania, which has worldwide circulation as well. And that one is on strengthening food security through smallholder farmers in emerging economies. And so we are published, but we are not necessarily emphasizing the academic aspect of it. That is there also, but it's a program for everyone, or across the board at any academic level, and therefore it's really suited for our own development.
Right. Now, you mentioned something earlier, Dr. Naraine, is that, well, in the Caribbean, that the focus has heavily been on the science,
Yes.
agricultural science, but not so much on the technology and on the entrepreneurial aspect.
Right.
When I went to Keon High School, we did agricultural science. Of course, it was more focused on what weeds to crops and that sort of thing. Now, at the college, you are saying that the focus on agriculture is more integrated approach. Or do you have it at the college in separate tracks? Like you have the science, you have the technology, and you have the business. Or you have some sort of a approach that is integrated or multidisciplinary?
They're separate tracks, but in any track that you take, you get exposure to all of those because you work with it. If, for example, you're in a science track, you get exposure to technology.
Okay.
If you're in a business track, you get exposed to, and vice versa. You get exposure to all of them. So you develop an appreciation at an associate's degree level. You
We have
develop
core and electives.
Core and
core
electives.
Exactly. And at this level, we need to also build attitudes. See, that's one of the major of the three educational objectives or categories of objectives. It's the knowledge. You have the knowledge, you have the skills, but you have the attitudes. And when you're in an environment where you offer three tracks, even though they are separate tracks, you have the electives too that you can integrate. You develop the attitudes of the direction or the type of systems that we need to use and how we utilize innovative technologies.
I find that one of the problems, especially with people who go into agriculture, is that they may see it as a short-term venture rather than being it for the long haul. And perhaps that is because they do not view it as a business, or they do not see it as sustaining a livelihood.
Right.
Let's face it. Sometimes the market is probably not there. Sometimes what you find is that you find everybody growing the same crops.
Yeah.
Everybody growing the same crops, and if everybody is growing the same crops, what is going to happen is that you are going to have an abundance of the same crops, and so therefore that is going to shove down your price. A glut and all this kind of thing on the market.
Waste.
A waste, really.
It's a waste. Wasteful.
So
Wasteful
what advantages the type of farming that you're talking about, what advantages does it have for a sustained livelihood in terms of people who can really make money from this type of farming, that it would be, you know, probably low cost in terms of production, but at the very same time there are so many financial benefits?
Well, in any kind of agricultural production, whether it be soil, whether it be some sort of media or hydro, you first have to know who you're going for, first of all. So you can't just say, hey, I'm going to be a farmer and I'm just going to plant, and then I worry about the sales. I mean, that's bad.
You have to first look at the market or the demand.
Exactly. You first need to know your audience. Who are you producing for? Who are your consumers, right? And in what quantity you would need. We're not saying that these technologies are the answer to all the problems that's out there, but you still need that business sense of acknowledging and understanding the dynamics that come with the entrepreneurial aspect of any business. So if you're doing this type of farming, the advantages that comes with this type of farming would be the reliability of supply, whatever that supply may be. It could be from 20 heads of lettuce to 200 pounds of tomatoes, but you need to know who is going to take these items, who you're going for. You can't just say, well, I'm just going to get a hydroponic system and I'm going to make money. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
You first need to have commitment from the market, and you should also show resilience in terms of being able to make that meet that demand. Now, in terms of time frame, it's more predictability where the time is concerned. So you can say for sure, okay, I'm going to give you a cucumber in 45 days, or I'll give you a lettuce in 25 days. It's more specific. So you don't have between 20 and 30 days and 35 and 40 days. You could hit the date specific, right? So that's efficient in terms of time. Now, a lot of these businesses, and hotels, they're like a 2-week forecast, just in case that they have to import. And
Right.
Due to the fact that you may not be able to meet the demand. Now, you first have to understand the crops, know what you're growing, how long they take to grow, and how you have to plan to keep it that cycle. All of that are important where agriculture is concerned. It's not just you being able to grow the plant, but you first have to understand, what am I getting into agriculture for? Am I doing it for research? Am I doing it for feeding myself? Or am I doing it
self-subsistence?
for entrepreneurship? No. Any one of those approaches, you have to approach it completely different based on the outcome that you're desiring. So you first have to acknowledge, what am I getting into this for? You must be true to yourself. You can't say, well, I'm gonna say I want to do peppers, but really in truth and in fact I want to do lettuce. You know, the rotations, the system of choice to grow it's different in terms of if you have 10 heads to harvest versus 1,500 heads. The system design has to be different to accommodate that. Both systems can grow, but it's not efficient in terms of time management. All of these are things to be considered when you're getting into it. And you cannot be worried about, you have to grow 10, 15 things to make money. It doesn't work like that. You focus and master before you move on.
Okay.
So I focus on lettuce, I've mastered. I can move on to peppers or corn or tomatoes or strawberries or whatever the case may be. But you first have to master before you can move on.
Sure. Yeah. Now, some of the crops that you are, for example, is it that you're talking here about short-term crops? This type of farming is more for short-term crops, isn't that so?
Yes.
Short-term.
Short-term.
Right, okay. Rather than the long-term.
Yeah. But I also want to touch on the same the questions you had and to build on what Stuart mentioned, is that when we have a glut in the market, it's as a result of perhaps bad communication or directives or knowledge of what the market requires. And somebody see that, hey, somebody's selling a lot of peppers. Say, hey, I want to jump in on that, and it becomes a mess.
Yes.
I don't know that we can really control it effectively unless we have more of a communal system where you have this area in which you would give support in terms of infrastructure, but then you can know what others are growing, and that could be regulated in a communal system, so you have output in terms of the various things that are needed and in the quantities that are needed. And that works in some communities. I don't know that it will really work here unless we set that up. But it's important for an individual enterprise to be diversified enough so that you minimize the risk that if you're doing peppers, and somebody is doing that and there's a lot in the market, you can fail as an enterprise. You get in and you have to exit.
Yes.
So if you have about 5, and that was an index calculated in one of the studies that we did, agricultural diversification and calculated index, the optimum is 5, not necessarily meaning that more is better or less is better. It's just an optimum of 5, depending on how you master them. So you have to be able to master each one, and excuse the term, but to be able to master all of the ones that you do, so they're consistent, reliable, and all the things that go with it, rather than diversifying to be many more and you're not able to control it. So there must be control, growth control, but not necessarily plant growth control. And so a diversified system is important in those aspects, but also in other aspects. An integrated system is different. One in which we reduce waste. We in the Caribbean, we produce ton loads of waste, and it costs us to produce the waste, and then it costs us to get rid of the waste, and we can benefit more from it. But if we have an integrated system, one in which I'm working on currently, it would take years to build out, really, in terms of the input and the maturity of the farm, etc. So it's not like you can get into it and you're not making money, you get out of it. You have to work on it over a long. It must be a strategic approach. But in the integrated system, I mean, the whole philosophy of integration is come for small scale, of economies of scale.
Yes.
But there's we reduce waste, and then there's in the value chain model, we are able to derive more out of the same unit of input. And so both concepts are fantastic. It's just that we have to develop there. In a more diversified system, and an integrated system, more or less an integrated system, there are other technologies that we can add to complement what can be done with these innovations that we're talking about. There are other innovations that can go along with that, like processing soil. You know, we import soil, don't we? In the Caribbean, we have bags of soil that we import from all the way in Canada. Do we import soil from Alaska and Australia too? I don't know, but we import soil from distant lands. We should be able to do that here. We should be able to use waste to make soil, and also to be able to make animal feed or livestock feed, waste from crops. You know, if you harvest, let's say, corn, that's just a tiny part of the plant. I mean, you think of the rest of it similar to the sugarcane, you know, animals. So there are many opportunities. It's just that we are now starting. This is a starting point for us. We are very much a fledgling, or we're just been conceived in terms of being only 3 years into implementing a program at the college, whereas institutions in agriculture have been there for ages. So we will have to grow into it and get more things coming our way.
I think that's, you use the correct term, grow into it, because I am very impressed with the whole idea. And Stuart mentioned getting involved in the schools and going into the schools and developing this awareness in terms of feeding ourselves and, you know, getting agriculture to be something that is attractive. Because let's face it, for many people it's not such an attractive industry, especially here in St. Kitts. You know, now you mentioned the technology, and that young people are attracted to the technology and so on. How is that going to help them with the agriculture? How do you see that really pulling them,
well,
to deal with the agriculture?
Well, we stop doing a lot of things, but we never stop eating unless we have, you know, given up on life. Have to eat. So, which means every day you consume a agriculturally related product. every day without fail. So sometimes you don't question where it comes from or who did it, or you know. But I'm sure if you eat something that you produce, the level of pride alone in saying, well, I good at watermelon, or I good at pepper or cucumber, it's much different. But if you're growing it in a way where you're failing 9 times out of 10, it becomes very daunting, and you might say, well, but the same for me, for sure. So you put it far away from you as possible. I can't do this. This is just way outside of what I'm willing to do to get this done. Now, if you are shown another way that it can be done, and it's completely different to what you know, but you're looking at the result, and the result is positive, like, well, this may work. We may be onto something here, because I mean it's tangible, and that's one of the fails of the premier academic institutions. We have a lot of research, but we shelve it. So persons don't get to see it, they don't get to benefit from it. It's never implemented anywhere. So it's like, you know, you mention, oh, this person discovered this or invented this, and you get a little pat on the shoulder, and then that's it. So nobody benefits but you. But if you're doing it for everybody else, why should you alone benefit? So you're defeating the whole purpose of doing it in the first place. So if you can find a way to show persons that there is another way you can do A or you can do B, and prove it by, you know, having the tangibles, it is a visual display. You can see it, you can touch it. It's right at your grasp. So right away your chain of thought changes, because you're saying, well, this looks something, you know, along the lines of a technology, you know, technological approach that I could be interested in, and it's possibly something I could try, or I may have a different design based on what I see here that may work. I might not have these pipes, but I might have some bottles or something else where I could connect and make it happen, you know, using the same concept or the science. But even parents, they're driven by their kids. If your kids are into it, you're into it. So if you get the encouragement from your children and say, well, hey, I want to do a little backyard, you know, it's welcoming, because that is not a conversation you would normally, you know, hear.
And I think that you mentioned the key points there. One, the interest, and the interest will grow when you see the tangible results.
Exactly.
Yes.
The interest will grow, and you know, when you realize basically that you are saving money.
Pretty much.
Cost savings. I mean, you're growing some tomatoes in your backyard, and you know, you have a constant supply of tomatoes. You don't have to go to the supermarket and buy tomatoes, and it's cutting down on your food bill.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that sort of a thing. I think that that really has to be the approach, because I think that a lot of people don't get into agriculture, one, is because they don't see it as a valuable.
Exactly. Too many failures.
Too many failures.
When you don't have monkeys, you have pests, you have predator larcenies, major issues.
And that's because the approach has been, for too long, traditional. And if we continue to do traditional, the mindset will still be there of failures. And if you interact with the failure enough, you would not be disinterested. But if you interact with this new innovative techniques, you will then develop more of an appreciation for it. So we looked at all that. Also, the fact that in the changing climate, we need to look at food security and building resilience in communities where disaster strikes. You need food back on the table. If adverse weather conditions, rough seas, whatever the case may be, the boat may not come, and so we need food security. And the rising cost of food. Do you think it's worldwide? I mean, it's a premium. Almost everywhere in the world. And
you have more disposable income as well.
Right.
If you're spending everything on food and bills, I mean, it's very challenging. And at the same time, you may be buying something from the supermarket and you may assume that it's of a high quality based on the price, but in truth, that in fact is really not. Because I mean, take meat for instance. A lot of meat that comes here, they're grade C and D. The grade A meat is walking on the street pretty much, eating. Is not caged, free roaming. So the fat to meat content, the quality of the food, not to mention there's no need to add nitrate to the meat as they would do normally to discourage bacterial growth, etc. It's fresh, it's the nutritional value it's much higher. A lot of the stuff we get, I mean, the apples, most of the apples we get, they're full of starch. So you may feel like you're not eating French fries because you're trying to avoid the starch, but here you are eating an apple. It's loaded with starch, and you bite into it, there's no taste, and it turns brown in a few seconds. It starts to oxidize because of the high level of starch. So these are the kind of things that we need to address, because it's not nutritionally viable to eat something that is not vine ripened. And the same could apply to picking a ripe mango or having a mango in a box, picked and
sprayed. You get the color.
Then you get this a sourish kind of effect. You get the citric acid and this carbic effect, and it's a little sour. It's not as sweet because you have the undeveloped sucrose levels in some of these fruits. So, and you're paying top dollar for that. So imagine you're paying more for less, pretty much.
Yes.
If you want to look at it like that.
Yeah. There's also the concept of time. I think time has collapsed, and space has collapsed with this technology in terms of farming, where if you were to have a 4x4, a 4 foot by 4 foot space, you could have for you or your family, fresh vegetables almost every day in a 4x4 space. You could do it on a part-time basis in probably 1 hour a day. You can go in with your tie, or those who like suits. Not like me.
So it doesn't require.
Exactly. So so there are opportunities for that, but there's an OAS, Organization of American States course, the 13th edition. Again, it's a concept in the Caribbean and Latin America on sustainable cities. And we will be presenting a topic on urban agriculture, because you can now all of a sudden you have more people that can enter the market or at least involved in the industry.
Because people don't really grow really in urban areas. I mean, sometimes urban areas become concrete jungles.
Exactly.
Let's face it. And so the growing and the farming is left really to the rural areas. But now you're saying that I think I know where you're going.
Yes.
You're saying that in the urban areas, because this does not use soil, and some of this farming does not use soil and so on, you can set up hydroponics in your backyard.
And it's closer to you.
And it's closer to you. Closer to
Bring the food closer to you.
My first farm in St. Kitts was actually on a concrete slab, soil-based on a concrete slab. I got 45-gallon buckets used. I didn't even buy them because I went out in the community and got them. I created the soil in there and the system for organoponics, and it was fantastic results. I still have the results documented. We implemented that at the college alongside hydroponics, and one of our student-based research projects became the best in the region. Best in the region at the Cape level for that research component. And also in the book we have showed student activities from our field work and so on in there. In fact, the way we write is not about a lot. There are theoretical underpinnings, but we have step-by-step instructions as well, and results and how you get them. So they're instructive as well.
Now, the agriculture program is basically based at the technical division of CFBC.
It's under that umbrella,
It's under that umbrella. Now, you have had The program is how old now?
About 3 years.
About 3 years, I would say. And you've had a number of graduates
Yes.
from that program. Is there any way that you have tracked those graduates coming out of the agricultural program to really find out if they have gotten involved in even having a farm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have?
Some of
What has
some
been
of like one student that worked extensively with me about 2 years ago from Nevis. He has a hydroponic farm in Nevis. He does hydroponic farming, and he's been setting up other farms as well for individuals. So he's taking off, and I think he's still working in the Department of Agriculture as well. So you could be employed and you still could be an entrepreneur.
So that is one of many.
And,
Yeah.
and I think some of them are going into backyard farming, so they do that in addition to what they would do normally if they were to have a job in some way not a higher studies. But I must say that we started off with a high level of interest in terms of enrollments, and then that increased very rapidly. But then in the past cohort, that has diminished. So we need to look into some of the reasons for that. But I think the uptake has not been as good overall in the country with agriculture compared to the other places that we have been to with the OS project. But what Stuart is doing now in the schools, in the primary schools and the secondary schools, is a strategy that will take a longer term to really be more consistent in that. And of course, with limited resources, we need to look into that as well, which we are definitely looking into. So,
I think the reason why I asked that question is because you are training people to get involved in a particular field, and the education component of it. They are learning the science. They're learning a lot of theory, but it goes back to the whole thing of implementation.
yeah.
And I think that is a big problem in our education system. People are graduating year after year from the college. They have looked at certain areas. Some of them I know, for example, when I taught down at TechVoc,
Yeah.
English and so on, the guys there, they would graduate from auto mechanic. They're doing mechanic. And some of them are not able really to find jobs in mechanic. You see them working in a supermarket. They're not really putting what they would have learned into practice. It's not being implemented. So here it is, we want, for example, we are saying that we want to grow the agricultural sector. And we are training people at the college. But at the very same time, I am more interested in the follow-up to see if these people are really implementing what they would have learned at the college. Otherwise, then we're sort of spinning top in mud. Because at the end of the day, what you want to see is the implementation. People really applying the skills and so on and the competencies that they would have harnessed at the college.
That's why we're using this approach,
Yeah.
so that it can increase the contact time they have with the technology. When you're at the college, normally I see those students when they do their capstone. So I only get them in their second year, because they're handling a lot of the theoretical stuff in the first year, and then the second year they do a lot of practical work. And I still feel like those 5-6 months is still not enough contact time, because you cannot really get exposed to a plethora of crops practically in that short space of time. So if you're in the high school setting, and we are part of that, and we are showcasing the various crops that can be grown, they're doing the SBAs, etc. there on site. They're doing their own data collection and the measurements and all of that. So they're kind of getting their feet wet, so to speak. So when we get when they get to the college now, we can move even further and deeper into the concept.
Mm-hmm. What about, for example, because young farmers, because we're talking about young people, not that we are discriminating against others, because this type of farming, as you correctly said, you have people who are with disabilities and in wheelchairs and so on, who can get involved in this type of farming. Women can get involved in this type of farming. Older people can get involved in this type of farming. But for the young people in particular who are very, very interested, and they go to the college and they want to do agriculture, but when they come out, they don't really have the support. Is it possible that, for example, you can have a sort of a young farmers association or something like that, where they can meet, bounce ideas, and see how they can move forward with what they really love?
That is why we need to think of the entrepreneurial aspect of it through the business track. There are not too many jobs in agriculture anyway. The farms are not really going to hire too many people, and if they do, they pay menial wage, and we want to move away from that. And so the entrepreneurial direction is important. And obviously, we would need policy support and institutional support for association funding and all these things. So, having started only 3 years ago, the road is pretty long ahead, and we definitely need to look into all of these things so we can give support. And I know of course, the concept of incubation, but it requires seed money and all that stuff to get people involved, get them started.
I know the government has the Fresh Start program, which is really administered from the Development Bank. Where people can get involved in business and they can go and get a loan and so on. Because sometimes people need that support. They need the financial support. They need the technical support. And they also need the moral support. You're a farmer, and here it is that your crops are failing and so on and so on and so on. That must be quite demoralizing. You put so much money into whatever, and all of a sudden now the monkeys come and the whatever come and so on. It can be rather discouraging, I think.
That is why I mentioned, not that it's far-fetched, a communal system. The communal system, not necessarily that it has to be a commune in that sense of the word, but a system in which it's a collective action, a space with infrastructure and opportunities for entrepreneurs to at least begin, and perhaps to continue as well, but at least to begin and get that support until they can generate enough revenue from that to be able to go on their own. A lot of support is needed. You're absolutely right.
Yes, a lot of support.
Policy support as well.
Policy got to play a big role in that.
Support and patience and so on. I don't think it's a very easy enterprise, to be honest with you.
And I don't want it to sound easy as well. It's rewarding. It takes hard work. And if you're getting into something that you're losing, you should try to at least get out of it, unless you have a long-term plan to make it viable.
Right.
But we know the opportunities because we have the results.
Yes.
And we have demonstrated it and so on. So we have the proof of concept. And we know that others have tried it as well in the same way, and they are successful too.
Right. Now, I know that you spoke earlier about partnering with other educational institutions.
Yes.
At the CFBC. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Partnership with Dalhousie. We have a partnership with them in agriculture from our faculty to their faculty as well. I think our students do 3 years there, they get a year off, and they do 3 years there. At UCF, we have a 2+2 arrangement with UCF in Florida, and the only difference with that arrangement is that the students are aligned with the environmental science track at UCF. So they do 2 years here of agriculture, and it can equate to 2 years of environmental science at UCF as well, because their programs are much more wider, and so agriculture falls also under that umbrella.
Environment.
The environment, right? So that's why it fit in the track. And I think we have one with the UWI.
It's in principle. Said the student today just gave me the news that he has been accepted for the 2+2 arrangement, even though we haven't quite formalized it, but we had many discussions and so forth already, and they said yes. They looked at our program and said yes, we can do a 2+2. And of course, Earth. I'm not sure what arrangement we have at Earth University, but some students who have started here have gone on to Earth University.
There's a scholarship available. For students. I think they take 2 or 3 students every year.
Now, given the whole thing of pests, for example, in the traditional farming, one of the some of the things that farmers have to contend with: one, pests destroying their crops,
And diseases.
diseases, hurricanes, weather systems and so on. Now, how does this new method of farming, the hydroponics and the aquaponics and the hybrid ponics, how does this, can this mitigate, this type of farming, mitigate against some of these threats, these risks?
It was developed with all those and more in mind.
As an adaptation strategy.
That's only 3, but it's something like 12 or 14 objectives we're looking at. But with the pests and diseases is concerned, because the rate of growth is so rapid, sometimes the pests themselves don't get to establish properly. So by the time they're trying to get established, you would have harvested. That's 1. 2, because the plants are fed, I don't want to use the term a balanced diet, but they are well fed early, and because of that they develop certain biocidal and biofungal properties that help them to defend themselves very early. We did some experiments with I think it was seasoned peppers in both systems, and we recognized that the ones that we planted in soil weren't able to survive at an early rate after being attacked compared to the ones in hydro that continue going, even though they were attacked and they were side by side, but just into different systems. So that being said, we recognize that once you're fed properly early, you're able to defend yourself.
Okay.
Now, where the hurricanes are concerned, the way I design most of these systems, they can be dismantled and moved in a very short order. There's nothing about the design that makes it permanently in place. From the houses we use to house the systems to the system designs, we can strip and move. So take for instance the one at the college. We can take that apart in about 20 minutes. And the greenhouse, probably we can take all the sides out in probably within the hour. As well. So it's not, and we just leave up the frame so the breeze or whatever just pass through. Now if you're planting in the soil or you're planting in hydro and a hurricane threatens, you lose the crop in the soil. Similarly, you have to lose the crop in hydro, because we have to take these pipes now indoors for safety. But the plus side on that is that if we take them out and we start planting, an average of 40 days, you must have something to eat. If you're on the cucumber side, or in 20 something days if you're on the lettuce side. So you don't have to start like and be waiting for any long time. We got an average 40 to 45 days.
Now what are some of the crops that basically are favorable to this type of farming?
Well, we have experimented with about 25 different plants.
25 different.
All above ground.
But I know I've had your tomatoes when I was at the college. Your cherry tomatoes, right?
So we've done a lot above ground. So you got from strawberries, corn, cauliflower, cabbage, lettuce,
Eggplant.
Strawberries can grow here.
Okras,
Yes, they can.
long
Really?
bean.
Well,
did
again,
it.
they can be grown
Yeah.
again because we did it.
Yeah,
Back in 2012, we did it. The
I
concept
thought-
about the strawberries, what a lot of people don't realize is that the reason why strawberries are not growing down in these lower extremities is because the temperature is not consistent. In the mountain, the temperature is basically consistent night
It
and day.
needs a cool. It needs cool.
day and night it's consistent.
Right.
Generally, the range,
But
there
the
are no
trick,
ranges.
the trick to it is it's the root temperature that has to be consistent, not
Oh.
the foliage above ground.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to grow them a few times successfully, understanding that. So that's why it comes back to research. It's important to do these, to uncover these anomalies and things that are along the lines of what can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we challenge ourselves to investigate a little deeper and find out. But we have done it. We have done it from cuttings. The research that's gonna move forward now, it's the tubers, the ones that go below. So we have a design that would speak to that. Already, I've been working on it for a couple of years. I think I've managed to have it nailed now. It's just to test it out. So I'm
Okay.
gonna try to seek some funding to do a demo, and we're gonna work with sweet potato, ginger,
Okay.
and maybe one of those yams or ginseng. I'm trying to get my hands on some
What
ginseng.
about the
as well.
bulbous crops like onions and so on?
Well, those would come.
The bulbs.
Yeah, once you get one root type to go in a particular family, then it would speak to the other. That's why I'm choosing
Okay,
ginger,
okay,
because ginger would
Yes.
speak for our root and ginseng,
Right, the
turmeric
root
and all those,
crops.
right? The rhizome. So that's how we're gonna do it, and then we have some work to do with aquaponics, where we're gonna be doing fish and.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a couple things lined up
Yeah.
down the road to get
And the
involved.
integrated system, as I mentioned.
Sure.
Yeah, so we had a number
So
The
Jack-
work
long
never
ways to go.
stops.
Gentlemen, let's go to the phone lines just for a few minutes
Sure.
because our time is almost up. And to see if people have any questions, I'm sure there are some farmers out there and some young people out there who are very interested in getting involved in this new way of farming, innovative and technological way of farming. And so the numbers to call, the local number is 465-2555. That's 465-2555. And the overseas number is 1-718-577-2916. That's 1-718-577-2916. We welcome your calls. There's no one on the line at the moment, so we can keep talking.
We can keep talking, yes.
Yes.
But, you know, we must say that in the next cohort of students, we're looking for new enrollments to the program at the college. The enrollments period would take place towards the latter half of August. Before then, we plan to do a demonstration and invite more young people, at least students. But there are opportunities also to, if the interest is there, for short courses for those people who are already working, want to supplement their food bill, or farmers, existing farmers who want to transform their farm, maybe a short course from a very practical approach, so that it's more about the entrepreneurial or supplemental activity to what they're doing.
Okay. Good. Now, what have been some of the challenges to the program?
The first one, I would think that, and that's where the challenge that we faced pretty much universally in the Caribbean, that the stigma on agriculture, it's a mindset. And even though we have this innovation, I don't think people are necessarily, they may hear about it, but the uptake is very slow. The uptake is very slow. And obviously, for people to have more confidence, at least potential supporters to have more confidence, maybe they need to see us exist for a longer time, and more proven results. The problem is that it's almost like a dilemma, because if then you wait, then we have to continue with the challenges until then.
Sure.
And in terms of the sustainability, how long can we sustain a program until we become more mature? But we have examples of success, as you can see with from many directions. But in essence, the most important one is that people are using the technology and they're successful at it. So we'll encourage graduates from the high schools to get into agriculture in one of the 3 tracks, whether they would like more academic orientation or more skills-based or competency-based orientation.
Yes.
There's both. So that's our focus now, and I think with more entries and more people getting involved at the community level, entrepreneur level, over time we can build a critical mass and start to really make an impact on our food supply.
Right. I think one of my concerns basically is with we just don't want agriculture, but we want sustainable agriculture.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what it is. Sustainable agriculture.
It's one of the objectives. So
right.
Most of the media that we use in the AS300, that one is recyclable. The cup is recyclable. The chambers are recyclable. The only thing you change are the seeds and the nutrients. So
right.
The pump is resilient. It's been customized to run constantly. The wattage is very low. The output is very high. Because initially we were intending to have it completely green by using solar to run the system. So that way it can run in any location, whether municipal or somewhere in the suburbans.
And you don't have to use a lot of chemicals that are.
There's no pesticide use.
No pesticide use. So it is friendly on the environment.
Absolutely. The harmful or the hazardous chemicals from pesticide and fungicide and so forth, those are the really harmful ones.
And you mentioned something earlier about climate change. We hear a lot about climate change. Some people believe it, some people don't believe it. Right? But the glaciers are melting in Antarctica, and soon we're going to have rising sea levels and so on and all of that. We live in very coastal areas and all that sort of a thing. It may affect us.
Yeah.
Some of the trees, especially those in the mountain, like the mangoes, and for instance, a perfect example, they're behind in terms of the production for them to be ready for the summertime. So I'm guessing that crop will be in somewhere down in maybe late September.
Okay.
But that's a challenge for the monkeys as well, because they depend on that crop to do the reproduction and all of that.
And it's a real challenge because there's a mango tree in my yard and these monkeys wouldn't keep out of my yard.
Yeah.
Maybe you should bring a gun and come, because you're looking for 50 of them.
You're feeding
for your
thing. But you have to realize the monkeys take blame for birds as well, and wild pigs. Birds will eat out the flowers from the plants.
True.
If they don't have it in the forest, they'll come on your farm and they will pick the flower. They'll eat the flowers and the small fruits. So that too, you have that problem, and of course pests and diseases. You have wild pigs and so forth. So there are those challenges. But what is not sustainable is traditional agriculture. That is not sustainable. Where you have a technology where you have more control over your input to derive the output than to just scatter the seeds in the wind.
But the challenge is also out there. I mean, a lot of the food we consume now, they're genetically modified. All the animal feed produced are genetically modified. And with genetic modification, we're still only able to feed 75% of the world population. And we expect a boom by 2 billion in between 2030 and 2050. So if we're still doing a banged up job of feeding with all this technology, what's going to happen in another 15 years? We're going to have serious crisis because we're getting better at surviving as a species. So which means we're reproducing more, we're living longer, which means we're consuming more food. And I think the next crisis we're going to have is going to be based on food.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, before we leave, I just want you to talk a little bit about your publications before we leave. And then you can give your closing statements. And
Well, this one right here, Sustainable Food Production Practices in the Caribbean, Volume 2,
focus.
was edited by two professors at the University of the West Indies, Faculty of Food and Agriculture. And we have a joint publication, Chapter 10, and Chapter 10 deals with let's see here, I'm going to turn all the pages, I should know this page by heart. Wow, that's a lot of pages, Stuart. Agricultural diversification and non-traditional systems for sustainable food production. And that's, of course, me, Stuart LaPlace, Dr. Claire Bowen O'Connor, who heads up the program. We have Aminol Pierre, he's from Haiti. He's a colleague from Haiti, and Professor Kevin Meehan from University of Central Florida. And we have showcased in here various types of non-traditional agricultural systems or protected agriculture. We have tissue culture, which we haven't done the uptake on as yet. That should be in the pipeline. But we looked at hydroponics, organoponics, and hybridponics. And it's the same concept that we replicated in the region.
Yes.
So that's one. It's being used widely in schools in the Caribbean. And maybe Stuart could talk about yours, the one that you did with the top 20 inventions.
Okay. Well, I have, including this one, I would say about 6 publications. 4 are used by Cape Biology, CXC, and the other 2 are in hydroponics. One is published by international publisher in the United States. That book is available on Amazon. That's on hydroponics. It's basically using non-traditional approaches to sustain the environment. I have another one with the Committee of Technology and Alliance based in the Netherlands, and that publication is issued to Africa, the Caribbean, and the South Pacific. And I'm currently working on another one that's going to be used in the secondary schools in the region, seeing that we had the project going around. So that should be on stream for next year as well.
Right.
And the other one that came in after this was with a joint publication with Professor Meehan. He's in actually comparative literature, so he does well in assisting in formatting and editing. But that one is a worldwide circulation, and you can find it online. It's published out of the United States, and that's the one where it's on strengthening food security through smallholder farmers in emerging economies, to show the impact that smallholder farmers, backyard gardening, urban agriculture, you name it, in small spaces can make an impact on food security. But in there, I'm taking it through progressive stages, highlighting the kind of technology we're using now, but moving towards the integrated and diversified system at an enterprise level. I believe in that unit of analysis, because we need to support individual farmers to be successful.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
And then of course there's the handbook for student-based projects for Cape.
Sure. Okay, well, gentlemen, I think that we are out of time, but I want to congratulate you on especially your publications, because that is also very important in terms of passing on the knowledge that you have in the field. And in some ways that is sustainable. That is very sustainable. So congratulations on your publications and the work that you do at the college, in other schools, throughout the Federation, and even regionally in terms of promoting this new type of farming, new type of agriculture. Of course, how important agriculture is to our livelihood.
Absolutely.
You know, in terms of, you know, making some money and feeding ourselves in a healthier manner. So I want to thank you very, very much. Both of you are educators. Dr. Naraine, you're an environmental scientist.
Yes.
And Stuart is a biologist.
Yes.
Stuart has taught that for many years. And so both of you are so suited for the area.
Team.
And as a team,
Yeah.
of course. Okay, so thank you so much for coming today. Even
a
at
pleasure.
very short notice. I know you wanted to come for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, but
No worries.
That's
I'm
fine,
very
that's fine.
Happy to have you.
Yeah.
Okay, you have been listening to another edition of Working for You. Today I had as my guests Stuart LaPlace and Dr. Leighton Naraine of the Clarence Fitzwarren College. They are doing awesome work in terms of hydroponics, organoponics, hybrid ponics, and I think coming on stream is aquaponics. And they are developing this awareness, especially among our young people and other sectors of the population, about how this new type of farming can be of tremendous benefits to the country on a whole. I am your host, Lesroy Williams. I want to thank all of you for tuning in today and listening to this program. We will see you next week.